Playgrounds, wedding cakes, and the right to live according to your faith. Religious freedom has been winning lately in the nation's courts. Ashley Shaw has joined our team as a legal expert to help us sort through the nuances of these cases. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Stuart.
First, it's a case out of Missouri, and it involves church playgrounds. What's that all about?
Yes, church playgrounds. Well, I'm a mom of 3, and so we spend a lot of time on playgrounds. And this case was about, could the state of Missouri refuse to allow a preschool that was run by a church to participate in a program that would have given them recycled tire material for their playground? And thankfully, the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, you cannot discriminate and not allow this preschool to get this recycled tire material simply because the preschool is run by a church, a religious organization. So that was a good win. It was a 7-2 decision. We're really pleased with that.
Now, this case, it appears, will play into how we understand certain state laws that have been used to keep churches from getting basic services and assistance from state governments. Tell me about that.
Yeah, sometimes states have been using things called Blaine amendments to really prevent religious organizations from participating in things like a school choice program, where a parent would be allowed to select a religious school for their child to attend with state-sponsored funds. Well, now that Trinity Lutheran has come down, we see that probably the Blaine amendments will not be able to be used to discriminate against religious organizations as much, because now you can't discriminate against a religious organization who wants recycled tire material to participate in a program like that, or a school choice program. So we're hoping that this case, the Supreme Court case, will have a really good effect on states around the country.
Meanwhile, we've gotten a favorable action from the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals concerning Mississippi's law called the Protecting Freedom of Conscience from Government Discrimination Act. What did it do, and why is this good news?
Well, this law was crafted by Mississippi right after the Obergefell decision by the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court redefined marriage. And Mississippi said, look, we want to at least protect our citizens, businesses, religious organizations from being punished by the government if they hold to a belief in one man, one woman marriage. And so in this case, things like adoption agencies, they wanted to make sure an adoption agency could still operate under the belief that, look, we want our kids to be placed in homes where we have a married mom and dad, or a church. Can a church still please operate under the belief in one man, one woman marriage and not perform same-sex ceremonies in their building? This is what Mississippi was looking at, saying we want to protect our people. And so this decision is helpful in that the court said you don't have standing. The plaintiffs didn't have standing here. There was no harm. They couldn't tell us what the harm was in this law, which we would say there is none. It's actually a good protective law.
All of which is to say they're not the right people to bring the case, which means the court did not rule on what's known as the merits of the case. They didn't get down to the nuts and bolts of whether this is constitutional.
No, they didn't. And we would say this law is constitutional, and it's a wonderful protection for people who hold to a traditional view of one man, one woman marriage. And
we learned this week that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take up the case of a Denver baker named Jack Phillips. Tell me about it.
Yes, well, Jack had a client come into his shop, and they wanted him to bake a cake for their same-sex wedding ceremony upcoming. And he said, I cannot do that. That violates my faith and what I believe. He believed in one man, one woman marriage. And so he said, I'll sell you any other kind of cake here. He didn't refuse to sell them anything, but just said, because of my religious beliefs, I cannot make a cake and promote a same-sex wedding.
Now, if people try to learn about these cases just based on the headlines, you might be up the creek a bit because so many of them are misleading. I'm going to read you actual headlines from actual mainstream media sources. You tell me what's wrong with them. You ready? It's like the lightning round. Here we go. USA Today, Supreme Court will hear religious liberty challenge to gay weddings.
Well, this is not a challenge to a gay wedding. This is about whether or not this Christian business owner can be forced to violate his conscience and bake a cake for a same-sex wedding that he does not believe in.
Associated Press, Supreme Court takes on new clash of gay rights and religion.
Well, this makes it sound like someone with rights against someone with religion, when we know that the Constitution protects and gives rights to people of religious faith.
Los Angeles Times, a merchant refused to bake a cake for a same-sex couple due to religious beliefs. Sounds right, but it's not quite there, is it?
Not quite. What he refused to do was violate his conscience. He did not want to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding. He offered other kinds of cakes, but he could not It went against his religious beliefs to bake a cake and promote, which is essentially what you are doing when you are supporting a wedding like this by baking a cake. He didn't want to do that.
And I think the key point here is he didn't turn down the people who came in. He turned down the event that they wanted him to participate in. He said, I can't do that.
Correct, he did.
All right. Okay, let's say I don't need a playground resurfaced and I don't bake cakes for a living. How do these cases impact me as a Christian in America?
Well, first, these cases show that religious freedom is prevailing around the states. These bills can be passed and religious freedom can win. The right to live out your faith where you work, where you play, that's an important right that can be protected. You know, in the Family Policy Alliance, that's why we're working in states to help Christians, Christian business owners, religious organizations live out their Christian faith in a way where they're not punished for it.